Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a slightly different one-off. As always, I am D, and today we're going to look at the big four of the MOBA or ARTS genre. These are Dota 2, League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm, and Smite. I'll be bringing you some highlights from each one to show off their signature styles, as well as an idea of what each plays like. Let's kick things off then with Dota 2. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we're starting off with Dota 2 here. Now, as you can see already, the art style for the game is, while it's got some very fantastic looking characters, I mean, look at this, this is Wraith King here. Take a closer look at him. Well, kind of. But as you can tell, the art style on this, quite a bit more actual realistic. Like, this looks more like a real person, sort of, she looks more like a real person than, say, League of Legends or Heroes or Smite. Heroes of the Storm kind of has a more realistic look to it, but overall, Dota has probably the most realistic looking characters because of the way that the art design has gone. Now, one of the things you might notice, or one of the things you'll occasionally see, is what's called a denial. You don't see it too much in this game, but one of the things you'll see often, as you saw Tidehunter here hit a Radiant creep. If there had been a Radiant hero, such as me, in the lane when that happened, I could have told my character to attack that creep. If I'd gotten in the last hit, it would have been a deny. What denies do is they make it so that your opponent does not get the gold or experience from the kill. This can be done to anything. This can be done to creeps, allied heroes, if they're below a certain threshold of health, even towers. It's a good way to control the lane, help you and your team stop the opponent from leveling up quite as quickly. Now, there's not really a good example in this. Actually, there is a pretty good example, but one of the things about Dota 2 are these skill sets that you'll see. For example, in Dota 2, there's a lot more often you'll see a lot more passive skills. Take the Wraith King here, for instance. He's actually only got 2 skills that can be activated intentionally. Those are Wraithfire Blast, which is a targeted stun, and some damage over time, and Vampiric Aura, which is an aura that gives lifesteal to you and anybody around you. But then he's also got 2 other skills. He's got Mortal Strike, which is a critical hit passive, and Reincarnation, which is his ultimate passive. Basically, every few minutes, if he's got 160 mana and a point in this skill, he can come back to life after a few seconds. Now what you'll see there, you'll also see it up here in just a second, I believe. When a hero dies in this game, they make some kind of comment. Now that'll happen in the other games as well. But Dota 2 also has a lot more commonly has heroes comment on this. For example, at the very start of the game, you saw my character, the Bat Rider. I got a kill on the female Phantom Assassin. Bat Rider fancies himself kind of a ladies' man, so anytime he deals with a female character, he'll usually make some kind of comment about it. This can be if he just killed them, or if they're on his team. It kind of depends. It'll change a little bit based on whether or not they're friendly or enemy. Now, one thing you won't see in this game, but you'll see it a lot in pro games, is these jungle camps. There's something special about them. If you attack them at the right time but don't kill them, so for example, if I came over here and attacked this camp at about the 57, so like if it said 457, if I attacked them right then and moved away to draw them out, if the 5-minute timer ticked over and this camp was empty, then a new camp would spawn. And this camp would come right back, so this would actually have 2 groups of monsters in it at one time. This is what's referred to as creep stacking. The reason for that is that you can use this to increase the rate at which one of your characters can farm up items and experience, because they can kill the entire multiple monster camps to get all the gold and experience from them. Now, Skywrath Mage here has an item that is kind of important to the game. This right here, the Town Portal Scroll. Because unlike the other members of the Big Four, in fact, you see him using it there. Dota has no recall function. You can't just hit a key and then be right back at base. You have to use a Town Portal Scroll. What the Town Portal Scroll will do is let you teleport to any friendly building, including the home base, the fountain. It will also let you move from the fountain out into any of the lanes as long as you have a tower there to teleport to. This makes making sure that you have the right item at all times very important. Because if you don't have an open slot for a town portal, you might end up stuck in the lane and killed. Ladies and gentlemen, for the laning information for Dota 2, I've decided to switch off of the game I was originally showing you and show you this pro game from the International 2016 qualifiers. This is between VG Gaming Reborn and Team eHome. Now, the reason I decided to do it this way is because this will show you how the laning is different in Dota 2. Because first off, in games like League and Smite and Heroes of the Storm to a slightly lesser degree, the lanes are always going to be the same. The top lane is usually going to be a solo player, usually playing a tankier character, who will be there on their own because somebody else, one of the other characters is off doing what they need to do. The mid lane is usually going to be a spellcaster that needs to gain levels quickly to be strong in the coming stages of the game. And the bottom lane is usually going to be where your hard carry plays, supported by one, occasionally two of their teammates. Dota kind of follows that formula if you're playing Radiant, because the way that Dota is actually set up, the lanes will actually hit at different points. So, for example, if you're in the top lane, the creeps for the top lane hit right about here if they don't get blocked, because you can do that in Dota 2. So the creeps will actually hit right about here. This is actually very close to the Dire Tier 1 tower in the top lane. The opposite is true on the bottom lane. They'll actually hit closer to about here, which, as you can see, is much closer to Radiant Tier 1 on bottom lane. So in this situation, we have what is known as the safe lane and the off lane. The mid lane is always the mid lane. The safe lane on Radiant is the bottom, because it's so much closer to your Tier 2, or Tier 1 tower, you can just fall back, and the tower will defend you. Thus, this makes the top lane for the Radiant the off lane. Whereas, for the Dire, top is the safe lane, and bottom is the off lane. This changes the meta up. Normally what will happen is, the Radiant, most pro teams, what they'll do is, they'll send one player top lane, usually they're off lane farmer. In this case, from this case, we have, for VG Gaming Reborn, we had Yang playing on the Faceless Void. He would play top lane solo, occasionally supported by whoever was one of the support assigned to help him. The mid lane would have been Mikasa playing the Tinker. Tinker needs farm and levels to come online, so he would have been in charge of getting that in the mid lane. Then the bottom lane is where things get interesting. You would have had the hard farmer for VG Gaming Reborn, in this case End, who would have been supported by DDC and FY. Now, FY and DDC would probably also occasionally roam, where either one of them on their own or the two of them together would wander around, occasionally going to the mid lane, try and secure a kill, or they would go up to the top lane to help out Yang. The opposite, again, holds true for the Dire normally. What you'd normally have is you have one of these three, Old Lanham, Old 11, or Old Chicken. One of them would be down here, soloing the lane as the off lane. Probably would be Old 11 on the Darkseer, because Darkseer is a good off laner. Mid lane, you'd probably have Old Chicken, because Death Prophet is a good mid laner. And then top lane, you'd have the other farmer, probably going to be Ice Cubed, or Ice Ice Ice, supported by Fenrir on the Oracle, and probably Old Lanham on the Kunkka. That's one way that they'll do it. The Radiant will do 1, 1, and 3, with 1 in the top lane, 1 in the mid lane, 3 in the bottom lane, whereas the Dire will occasionally do 3, 1, 1, which is 3 top, 1 mid, 1 bottom. Occasionally you will see it as 2-1-2 on both sides or one side, where it's 2 top, 1 mid, 1 bottom. Occasionally you'll see something completely different, where you have 1 person per lane, and the 2 supports just wandering around trying to get kills or trying to help defend their teammates. That's where Dota 2, that's where one of the biggest differences in Dota 2 comes from, is that the laning is much different. It's a lot more fluid. The laning will change up based entirely upon the current needs of the game. That does happen in the other games, but it's a lot more common in Dota 2. One of the neatest ones you'll see sometimes is you'll have 1 person in top lane, 2 people in bottom lane, and 2 people in the mid lane, so you have the support helping out your mid laner. You see this a lot in programs, really. Now, an interesting thing about Dota 2 as well is that you'll notice, in addition, this is your main stat window right here. These are your skills. Now, each hero in Dota 2 falls into a category. They're a strength hero, agility hero, or an intelligence hero. Depending on what their primary stat is, will also determine what causes their damage to go up. So, for example, Bat Rider, intelligence hero. The higher his intelligence is, the harder he hits. Drow Ranger here, agility hero. Undying, strength hero. This gives you a very specific reason to get items, because some items give you stats. Okay, for example, the Ogre Club here that Drow Ranger has gives you plus 10 strength. This would give any hero plus 10 strength, which also increases their HP, in this case, by 200, because 10 times 20 is 200. Stat growth is a very important factor in Dota 2, to the point that 10 levels out of the game, you will actually have to put points into your stats. You max out your ultimate can be finally upgraded to the maximum level of 3 when you hit level 16. Your other 3 skills will be finished by the time you hit level 15. So, a lot of you are thinking, wait, that doesn't make sense, because if your ultimate level finishes up at 16, then how do you get 10 more levels? How do you get 10 levels of stats? Well, you put 1 in stats at 15 if you max out your skills. And the maximum level in Dota is 25 rather than 18 like it is in League. The only game with a higher level cap is Heroes of the Storm. So like I said, you will actually put 10 levels of points into stats. You gain 2 points to each stat whenever you level them up, and you level them all up at once. You don't say, oh, okay, I want to level agility this turn. Another big thing about Dota is that, yes, there are a lot of people with passive skills. The way that Valve makes up for that is that they have a lot of active items. For example, again, to use my Bat Rider here, I've got an active item here that is my Blink Dagger. It gives me a short range teleport. You just saw me use it there, mostly to get in and get some experience, but like I said, Blink Dagger gives you a short range teleport of up to 1200 units, which you can see on the screen as that green circle. There's also an item I'm picking up called Force Staff, which you use on a target, and whatever direction they are facing in, they get pushed a certain distance. Now, the active items tie hand in hand with, like I was saying, the high number of passive skills. But another thing about the passive skills is that if you play League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm, or Smite, you'll know that every character in there has a native passive, something that you don't have to level up. You have it immediately from the first level, and it might get stronger, it might stay the same throughout the game, but you always have that skill. Very few characters in Dota have that. In fact, I can only think of one off the top of my head that does, and that's the Silencer. Alright, I'm going to jump out of this map now to show you some of the other stuff that Dota 2 does. One of the things that Dota 2 does that's a little different are these. There's one here, and one here. These are what are called runes. They will always spawn in these 2 locations. Now, like I said, these will always spawn in these 2 locations. They will be different. When they spawn is at the 0 mark, so as soon as the game actually fully starts, and every 2 minutes afterwards. If this is sitting here, so for example, this is 15 minutes, if this is still here at 16 minutes, this goes away, and a new one spawns. There will always be 2. One of them will always be a bounty rune that gives you bonus money and bonus money and experience. The other one can be any number of things. The haste rune here gives you temporary max move speed. There's one that will give you, that if you don't take a hit while it's active, you will fully heal all of your health and mana. There's even some that give you invisibility, some that create illusions of you. The runes do very different things, and it's actually very important to control them, especially in high-level games. Now, one of the big things about Dota 2 is that it has a large roster. The roster is almost complete. There's only one character still missing. That is the Abyssal Underlord. They just haven't released the Underlord yet. They're still working on it. Now, a lot of games in this series, in this genre, have the idea that you get a small group of heroes that you can play with to start with. Dota goes a different way. All of these heroes are free and unlocked right from the start. You never have to pay to unlock a hero with any method whatsoever. So for example, if I wanted to go into a game and play, say, Enigma, I could. Or I could go and pick the Draw Ranger or the Doom. Any character that is in this game, or any hero in the game, you can play from the start for free, forever. That's how Dota works. Now Dota does have microtransactions, don't get me wrong, but the way they do it is cosmetic items. Now I know you're thinking all the MOBAs have cosmetics. Yes, they do. But the big four, Dota does it differently. Try and say that 3 times fast. What Dota does, instead of, say, buying a skin like you would in the other 3 games, is you can customize individual items. Let's find somebody. Let's go with the Phantom Assassin. So I've got quite a number of items with her. You can use different sets. There's this one. This looks like a skin, but it's not. It's actually made up of individual items. All of these are made up of individual items. I'll show you. For example, the weapon. This is her base weapon. This is another one. All of these are different items. They're different individual items. I can't use that because it's locked. But yeah, like I said, all of these are actually individual items. And you can actually change them as much as you want. Now, you can get these in the store for real money. A lot of times now, you'll end up buying treasures, which give you various items. You can get specific hero items. Now, the thing is, though, some of these, let's go to Dazzle real quick. You can get these apparently for $130. Some of them you can only get in treasures that you get from various places, such as the international compendiums. And there are actually items that you can only find in-game, because all of these items can be earned by playing Dota. Let me show you something. Okay, recents. Take, for example, that game we were just watching. I actually earned these as a drop from playing that game at the end of the game. That's actually just how that works. Another thing about these is that a lot of these items are actually created by the community. So for example, some of these items that you see here for Bloodseeker, a lot of them were created by Valve, the company behind this, but a lot of them were also created by people, like actual players of the game. Like I know some of the couriers were created. Some of these were created by actual players of the game. That's all of these, well not all of these, but a lot of these are created by just regular players. Now, one thing that Dota does incredibly differently from the other 3, or from the other 3 of the big 4 in the MOBA genre, is the way it handles item progression in game. You'll see that we'll use my Batrider here. And yes, the game is paused. You'll see that I've got these 6 items, and you'll also see this little icon down here. Each hero can actually have up to 12 distinct items in their possession at one time. You can only carry 6 on your hero. The other 6 go into what's called the stash, which will usually show right here if there's any items in it. Like I said, you have the stash. Now, the stash is what you can do. You can buy items when you're not actually at the main shop. It will only ever buy from the main shop. And if you're not there to have them to pick up the items immediately, they'll just go straight into your stash. So how do you get items from the stash? Well, you can do that while you're dead, or you can go all the way back to base to get them. However, say you're up here in the enemy jungle, if you're playing on Radiant, and you're up here in the Dire jungle. That's where this person comes in. This is your courier. The base courier is just a little donkey that you can upgrade to fly. All couriers can be upgraded to fly. What the courier will do is it will take your items from your stash and bring it out to you. You can also have them go here to the secret shop. Dota has a grand total of 5 shops that the teams can use. One of them is specific to the team, that is the main shop in the fountain. Then there are 2 side shops, one here and one here. Then there's 2 secret shops, one here where I currently am, and another one that I just showed you. So the main shop sells the majority of the items. The side shops sell a lot of the items that the main shop has. They don't sell healing items. They also sell a couple of items that you can get in the secret shop. And then the secret shop sells the really big, it sells a very limited amount of things, but these things all do something very big or are used for very big late game items. Now the problem here is that these couriers, the courier can be found and killed. If your courier is right here in the river, coming to you over here, but an enemy hero happens to be right here, they can actually shoot down the courier. And the courier stays dead for 3 minutes. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a quick little look at Dota 2, as well as how it's kind of different from the other 3 of the big 4 in the MOBA genre. Next up, we'll be moving on to League of Legends. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're back here with League of Legends now. You can already tell the difference. The art style in this is much more stylized. For example, the towers are gigantic humanoid statues. We have a very skinny looking fellow here. Somebody playing Jin, this is a news character. We also have an armored polar bear and a Frankenstein zombie guy. There's a lot more, like I said, a lot more of League is heavily stylized, and they also use a much more subdued color palette. This is not a bad thing. A subdued color palette actually works out. Now, one of the things, you'll actually see one of my teammates here going for this. The jungle in League actually has monsters. This is one of the big monsters here. What will happen is that if you use the spell Smite, which he actually brought along, if I remember right, he'll actually gain a buff from using Smite on that monster. You'll also see that there are a couple of large camps around. Those large camps have a large monster that gives you a Smite bonus. If he kills the large monster in this camp right here, he also gains a flat buff to things like cooldown reduction and mana regeneration. Now, one thing League also does differently are these summoner spells. You can bring 2 with you into a game. I've got Heal and Exhaust. What these do is they give you they're usually on very long cooldowns. So for example, that's 4 minutes and 3.5 minutes. They give you some kind of ability, such as, well, Heal allows me to heal people, allows me to heal my teammates, as well as myself, as well as get a speed boost. Exhaust slows down an enemy. There are quite a number of different summoner spells you can use. They all have various effects, and they can really change the way the game is played because of that. Now, unlike Dota, League has a recall function. You get 1 key, and after a few seconds of channeling, you're teleported straight back to base. Now, it's going to be difficult to show you this in the video. I'll probably cut in a screenshot of them in just a bit. But outside of in-game progression, League has what are known as runes. What these runes do is they give a minor boost to certain abilities. So for example, you might have one that gives you some extra, what it's called, ability power, which affects how strong your spells and your magical damage is. While another might give you more health, or some of them might even make you faster. Runes are very small buffs though. There's also what are called quintessences, which are larger buffs. Now, the 2 characters we have down here, my ally Misfortune and my playing Janna, we're not great examples of the next part I'm going to talk about, but we do have somebody here who is. In fact, we just saw him kill somebody. One thing League does better than any of the other, well, anything but Smite really, is that they're willing to push the envelope on mechanics. So for example, Jin here he has a 4-shot gun that he carries with him. That is his main attack. That's also his main that's also where he gets most of his ability uses from. He has to reload this gun. The 4th shot does more damage, but he always only has 4 shots. He can never upgrade that capacity. League tends to have a lot more mechanical diversity in its heroes. Because of the way they do that, they come up with some interesting mechanic and they use it to build a hero around. It's actually rather interesting. They are the ones that do that really best. Smite does it a little bit with the way they work, but for the most part, League does mechanical diversity the best. For example, there's a couple of characters that they get stronger or faster as they move along, as they just walk around. There's quite a number of heroes that do a lot of knockup. And there's actually a hero whose ultimate can only be used on enemies that have been knocked into the air. League, like I said, tends to put a lot more emphasis on mechanical diversity and interesting mechanical quirks of characters. This does lead to some characters being a little more gimmicky than others, but at the same time, it also makes them a little bit more interesting. Now, I'll have to cut in another picture of the roster here. But one thing that League does as well is that its roster is effectively infinite. Because of the way they design heroes, the heroes are not based on any specific mythology or any specific design principle, other than, it seems, what would be fun. Well, I say fun. It might also be something that's just more interesting. Alright, folks, this is a quick little look at League of Legends and how it's a little bit different from the other of the MOBA genre. Don't go anywhere, because next we're moving on to Heroes of the Storm. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Heroes of the Storm portion of the video. Now, you'll see here, this is not the home screen. This is actually the home screen. Because Blizzard knows production value. Thank you, Gul'dan. Now, to start with, we're going to talk about the origins of the heroes, because all heroes in Heroes of the Storm come from Blizzard titles. This naturally limits the number of heroes they're going to have by the number of games they've released and the number of heroes that would actually fit in something like this. But as you can see, there's already a decent roster. You can actually sort this out by role. You can have warriors, which are your standard tanks or frontline fighters. You have assassins, which are your main damage dealers, but they're very squishy. Supports, healing, buffing, keeping your team alive while possibly dying yourself. And then you have what are called specialists. These are people that do something different. One of my favorites is actually this gentleman right here, Mr. Abathur. He's not normally that color. What he does, instead of fighting, is he'll sit behind the team's lines and support them with various abilities while pushing the lanes. He can actually have global presence if you know what you're doing. Specialists tend to focus on pushing lanes out harder. You can also sort by universe, so you can have Warcraft heroes, Starcraft heroes, heroes from Diablo. Well, not necessarily heroes. I'm looking at you, Lyric. You also have Overwatch, which currently there's only Tracer. You get her if you ordered you can get her for free if you ordered the Origins edition of Overwatch, like I did. You also have Blizzard Classic. Currently, there's only the Lost Vikings. These 3 gentlemen. Now, the thing that Heroes of the Storm does a little differently is this: the quest system. Every day, as long as you have an opening, you will get a new quest. So, for example, you can have a maximum of 3, but as you can see here, I've already got 3. So the first one, win 3 games, simple enough. Play 2 games as StarCraft hero. Again, you would sort, so you could only play StarCraft heroes for this quest. And you'd play 3 games as an assassin hero. You can do all of the, sometimes you have overlap, so I can actually do all 3 of these quests at the same time with one character. Currently my plan, actually. Now, you'll see things that are a little different once we get into the game. I'll talk about those once we get there.
Hell, it's about damn time.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. We have just gotten into a Heroes of the Storm match.
Whatever it takes.
Now you might notice my big stomping space marine is riding around on a little rainbow unicorn. Well, actually, it's not a unicorn, it's got 2 horns. But he's riding around on a little rainbow pony. That's one big difference. First off, every hero in this game has either a mount or a mobility
Sure thing.
skill,
Oh,
which is assigned to the key of Z. Now, it takes a bit to mount up, and if you take damage while you're mounted, you do get knocked off your horse or whatever, because as you saw, my teammate here was riding on a card. Another thing you might notice is I'm level 2. I am level 3. So is the rest of my team. You don't level up individually in Heroes of the Storm. You level up as a team. So if one person on your team is level 3, everybody on your team is level 3. Now you do have a recall in this game, just like you do in Hero or in League of Legends and in Smite. Now you might also notice I don't have an inventory. I don't have any items at all. What kind of scrub am I? Heroes of the Storm does not have an inventory system. You do not earn in-game money, with one exception. There is a map where you do. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But there is no in-game item system. What you're seeing here is actually the first instance of a map objective. All of the maps in Heroes of the Storm have some kind of sub-objective. Where we are now, the first hollow, we gather these tributes. Once the team gathers 3 in this map, the enemy team gets cursed. Their minions are reduced to 1 HP, and their towers and their fortresses stop firing. Now this is an insane advantage like you would expect from something like that. In fact, what these do, they make the match a lot easier for the team that managed to do it. It's a push ahead mechanic, effectively. All sub-objectives are very important to actually do, because it gives you some kind of advantage. There's even one map where it's possible to win if you don't do them. If you don't do the objective, because of the fact that you can't attack the enemy HQ without using the sub-objective. Now, I mentioned that there's no inventory system. Instead of that, you have what is known as the talent system. Every 3 levels, well, starting at level 1 and then every 3 levels after that, you gain a talent. This gives some kind of buff to how one of your skills work, and in fact is pretty vital to the way the game is played.
Good kill.
Now this is also the other thing is, like I said, you start off with all your basic skills unlocked from the start. But at level 10, you unlock the ability to pick one of 2 skills for your ultimate. I'm going to take the Commandeer Odin. Because this used to give me a second life, but now it doesn't. But anyway, what it does do is turn me into this. Basically, I'm a giant walking tank that can just annihilate or destroy buildings. In fact, you're about to see the Chris go off to my teammate is getting the final tribute we needed. So there you see.
My favor is yours. Your enemies shall fall.
And like I said, the mounts are a big difference here. You can get a couple more, you can get various ones from the shop for real money. You can also get various new heroes for real money. That's one of the ways that works. That's how that works. But as you can see here, we've got the map specific objective. Well, we secured it, so we've got an advantage now. Because their towers are not firing. And their minions are reduced to 1 HP. You'll also see that the core is currently vulnerable. There's none of these. This is actually another difference. In Dota, you have the barracks. In V, you have the inhibitors. In Smite, you have the phoenixes. Here, you have the fortresses, or keeps, as we call them. Now, Heroes is one of the quicker of the 4 games. I think it's the quickest, probably, because we finished that in like 8.5 minutes.
Well done, heroes.
Now, like I said, you have talents that go up every 3 levels, and everybody has different talents. The big thing, though, is at 20, you can actually upgrade your ultimate again. So, for example, you saw me in there with using the Odin. At level 20, you can upgrade the ultimate you picked. You can also get a passive upgrade, or usually another upgrade for something else. In this case, if we'd gotten to level 20 in that game, I would have gotten the big red button upgrade, because the Odin would last 50% longer, and I could then fire a nuke. And come on, I can launch a nuclear missile. You can also look over the abilities here, including the 2 different ultimates you can get. You can change your mount you can also get different colors for your mount, but those are unlocked as you level up the hero. You can also have different skins you can pick. You always start with one, and as you level up, you also get various color variants for the skins. There's also what's called a master skin. Once you hit level 10 with a hero, because heroes level up independently of your account, you can get the master skin. This is the Tychus master skin as it looks normally. You can also of course, get color variations for that. Then you also have what are called, these are some very specific, some special skins, like this one changes the way he acts and sounds in game. This one is just a reskin. There's lots of different stuff that Blizzard does. Like I said, the biggest change though are the mount system that you get, where everybody has a mount, with a couple of exceptions. I'll show you. Take for example Abathur. He has no mount, he can't ride one. Cannot use mounts. Instead what he's got is Deep Tunnel. He can, anywhere on the map that you can see, he can get to. It's great for positioning because he needs to be mobile, because he's very squishy. He's got maybe I think even at max level he's got maybe 1500 HP, which is considerably smaller than anybody else. Other than that, like I said, one of the biggest differences again is the shared level system. Once your teammates hit level 10, you're level 10. And then there are the map specific objectives I showed you, like the tributes in the Cursed Hollow. There's also one where you collect seeds, and once you get 100 seeds, somebody on your team can control this gigantic plant monster, which is great for sieging down towers and bases. Then there's the one I mentioned, yeah, the Towers of Doom. What you do in the Towers of Doom is you can't attack the enemy's HQ directly. You have to take over towers. As you destroy lane towers in the Towers of Doom, they turn into yours. And the more towers you have, the more damage you can do to the HQ when what are called altars spawn. What the altars do is they fire off a number of blasts against the enemy HQ, where it's one per tower you control plus your HQ. Once you've done enough damage, you win that. But you have to fight for the altars pretty heavily, because the enemy any damage will stop you from channeling, and the altar channel is very long. Now a couple of maps have been pulled out of the rotation. I have never played the Lost Caverns, and I missed the Haunted Mines. The Haunted Mines, you would go down it was a 2-level map. You'd have 2 lanes, and then you would occasionally have to go down into the mines, fight undead, collect their skulls, and once the 100 skulls have been collected, you would have this big guy here, the Grave Golem, would spawn for each team. Depending on the number of skulls your team got, the more powerful your golem was. I think they disabled it because it was just too easy for one team to snowball out of control. You can get a 100 skull golem and there was basically nothing the enemy could do to stop it. I also have these. Now the only map that has anything to do with money is Blackheart's Bay, where you occasionally collect coins, pay them to the undead pirate Captain Blackheart, and he fires his ship's cannons on your opponent's base, which actually really vastly speeds up how fast you can push. I've never actually seen Lost Out. Anyway, folks, as we go down and explode with power, this has been a quick little look at Heroes of the Storm, easily the quickest of the form of the MOBAs that I'm going to be looking at for this comparison video. Don't go anywhere, because next up, we've got the god-fighting, mortal smiting game that is Smite. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4th and final of the games that we're going to be looking at for this comparison video. This is Smite. This is by Hi-Rez Studios, the people that brought you Paladins, Tribes Ascend, all those. Now, Smite is a little different in a number of ways. First off, I'll show you the characters you're playing. Notice it doesn't say heroes. It says gods. That's because in Smite, you play heroes from you play the gods of various religions or mythologies from the old world. For example, the new one, Erlong Shen, is from Chinese mythology, a great warrior. You also have Bacchus of Roman mythology. Fafnir is a recent addition from the Norse pantheon. You have Kronos from the Greek. You even have the Hindu goddess Kali. It even goes into Mayan gods with like Chak, Kabrakan. If you can think of a major mythology of the world, it's probably represented here. There's even Japanese with things like Raijin, Susanoo. I mean, they even have Ra of Egypt. Basically, their theme is that they have they want you will fight as important figures from mythology, not necessarily gods and goddesses entirely, because, I mean, Hercules is in here somewhere. There he is. And he was a demigod for the longest time. Another thing that Smite does, I'll show you real quick as we go into the play mode, is this. They have a lot of different modes. You have the standard one, which is the Conquest mode. This is the standard 3-lane map with 2 jungles and various objectives in the jungle. And the main objective is push down towers and destroy the enemy HQ. You also have what is known as Clash. This is a 2-lane map, smaller jungle, 5-on-5. Then you have a couple of single lane ones. First off, you have the Joust, which is 3 players, single lane, very small jungle. You also have Assault. If you've played League, you know what Assault is. This is the ARAM, all random, all mid. It's a single lane, and everybody gets a random god. This is where things start to get a little different. First off, you have what's called the Arena. This is a 5-on-5 match, but there's no towers. It's a giant gladiator fight. There's a very tiny amount of jungling possible. There's 3 camps on either side. What you do is you and your teammates try and push. Say you start down here. You and your teammates try to push and bring a creep wave up here to push into your opponent's tower. This will decrease their number of tickets. Once the tickets of a team reach 0, the game is over. You have Siege mode here. This is 4-on-4 with 2 lanes, much like Conquest. What you do is you try and get siege weapons because those will push quicker. You can do this in a number of ways. There's some in the jungle. I think you also get some for killing enemy heroes. Or enemy gods, I should say. I'm sorry. Now, there's one more game mode I haven't mentioned. You see it right here called Grab Bag 2.0. The reason I didn't mention this is because Smite has a daily special mode. They changed it up. They're recycling a lot of them because it's hard to come up with infinite new ideas. But what this is it's a random game mode that has specific rules. So for example, this one is a Conquest mode. Everybody starts with 40% cooldown reduction and maxes out at 80%. They have infinite mana. They start at level 3. They'll start with 100,000 gold. Basically, it's a case of how much faster can you buy out good stuff than the enemy. So, what is the game like? There's another big difference coming up. I'll show you in just a second once we get into it. There we go. Now, I have access to all the gods. Normally you don't. Smite allows you to do a one-time deal where you pick up all the gods, future and current, for about $30, if I remember correctly. Another thing you can do is you can have it auto-level you. Now you might notice this is a very realistic looking style. I mean, the palette is a little bit subdued. It's a lot more subdued than, say, DOTA. But the models are very high quality and very realistic looking. So for example, you could see somebody with Nate's body type and build. You can even see that person out in the world. Now, like I said, this is just a 2-lane map. You have this is another difference. This is your Titan. This is the HQ. If this falls, you lose the map. But the thing is, it can fight, and it will fight hard. It's hard to kill that thing without help. Then you have the Phoenix. The Phoenix is basically your inhibitor. It will also fight, does quite a bit of damage, and it will like the inhibitors in League. It will respawn after a few minutes of being dead. But as long as it's dead, regular enemy creeps will spawn in the lane, but they'll have flaming weapons, so they'll do more damage. Then you just have regular towers. Now, you might have noticed something. This looks a little different. This is not a top-down perspective like you're probably used to. No, Smite plays as an over-the-shoulder third-person game. So it's a lot. So, like, for example, I have to aim these shots. I don't just right-click. I'm actually left-clicking to do this. Another thing you'll see is a lot of the skills in this game are skill shot. So for example, you have to manually aim your skills, like that wall that my mirror player just put up. Yeah, all of these are all skill shots. I'm aiming every single one of these individually. Because of this, the last hitting also works a bit differently in this. You don't have, as long as you're the last person to have hit a minion, you'll get the experience in gold. You'll get the bonus experience in gold for it. And like I said, you can get auto items, which is what I'm doing because it speeds things up. Now, there are some gods out there that have auto-targeting skills. I know Ares is one of them because he's got a, well, it's not really an auto-targeting so much as it is it's a radial. Another thing you'll see in this game that's a little bit different. You see how that's called damage camp? The jungle camps are very, very different in this game. Because what you have to do is, much like in League, where you have the monsters that give buffs when you kill them, the jungle camps in this game give buffs as well. But there's a big difference. Namely, what you have to do is, once the camp has been killed, an icon drops. You have to go and actually pick up the icon to get the buff. If, say for example, one of your teammates decides to steal it from you, they actually can, as can the enemy. So there is actually every chance that you will lose a buff that you worked really hard to get. Now, because of the third-person perspective and the skill shots, crowd control becomes a very important factor in Smite. The point that some gods actually have some very powerful ultimates. For example, one of the ones here, the monkey-looking guy, that's Bots. His ultimate plants down a totem that causes every enemy in the area to run away from it. And yes, he does have an attack monkey. You can also, of course, check out, you do have a passive, and some of the ultimates you'll find will also actually trigger quick time events. There is the Chinese warrior prince god, Net Ja, who has his ultimate does include a quick time event. If you do it correctly, it does more damage. If you don't, it does less damage. It does basic damage. They also have, similar to League, they also have what you'd call stacking items. So for example, I've got one called Transcendence. Everything I kill gives me a stack that gives me 15 extra mana. Another thing you get different in this game that comes from your inventory system are the trinkets. You'll see that there's a slot flashing down at the bottom below my health bar. You'll also see one that's got a blue stone in it. Purification removes crowd control, like I said. Crowd control is very important here. You also have a secondary trinket that I just picked up called Sprint. This just makes me and everybody around me go faster. So you actually end up having 8 items in this game. Well, like I said, as you can see, the Phoenixes, what count as the inhibitors, actually will defend themselves. There's also a lot of synergy for certain gods. What you saw there was Hunbat's using his ultimate on me. But yeah, because of the skill shot nature of the game, you can also change the angle of your attacks.
Immortal!
You can also do ganks like that, if you know what you're doing. Now, another thing is, Phoenixes will actually heal up a little bit. Very slowly, but they do heal. What you see here is also there's also this, the Gold Fury. It doesn't give a buff. What it does do is give your entire team money. I'm not going to do that because I would die. The Gold Fury is one of the tougher monsters in the game, depending on your character. But yeah, you saw how there was that little stone on the ground, and now I've got a blue ring around me. If I hadn't been there to pick that up, I wouldn't have gotten the buff. Now the max level on this is 20, I believe. Yes, and you can actually have 4 levels in all your skills. And now you get to see the Titan itself go into fight. It acts just like a tower, except that it's actually mobile. It will not leave that circle it's in. So if you can fight it from outside the circle, you can actually kind of game the system a little bit. You can also use your skills on it. It will not take... It is immune to all forms of crowd control, though, so... The adept among you, or the observant among you might have noticed the horn running. That's actually not a mount. There are no mounts in this game, specifically. Or generally. There are some specific examples, such as the Chinese god Guan Yu. As you can see there. His ultimate is on the same rank, of course. Now the Titan can actually completely... Unless a team knows what they're doing or has minions with them, the Titan is incredibly dangerous to fight. It has no special abilities other than the fact that it's very tanky and does a lot of damage. Now you can actually turn off the auto items and the auto leveling in-game. I just prefer to leave them on. And like I said, the Phoenixes do respawn. They don't respawn at full health. But they do eventually come back, and if left alone, they will heal. And that's actually the basics of Smite right there, folks. Now I will show you, there's a couple of stuff I need to show you outside the game. Now you look over here, you might notice there's 3 things. Experience, this is your character, this is your personal level. So, for example, my player level, I'm level 20, I didn't get any experience because this is a practice game. You also have favor, which is the in-game currency. You can use that to buy things like gods and skins. And then you'll notice worshippers. Well, as I said, you're playing gods. But what the worshippers do, they show you your god level. As you see, I have 10 there. but she's still level 1. As you level up your gods by getting them more worshippers, by winning, or just doing really well in the game, eventually unlock skins. First one you get is the gold skin. You then get the legendary skin, and then finally the diamond. These 3 skins can only be bought if you have God Mastery 1, 5, and 10. 10 is the highest God Mastery level you can get. So that is the only way to get those skins. So if you want the diamond, the legendary, or the gold skin, you gotta work for them. They make sure you have to work for them. Also, you do get a login bonus every day for 7 days. It starts at 75, favor, 125, and it keeps going up. You eventually get gems, which are the premium currency. You also get level up bonuses. So for example, once I hit level 21, for 7 days I'll have Kukulkan, the Serpent of the Nine Winds from the Mayan mythology, and 1,000 favor. I've already got him. This has been a decent look at Smite, the 4th of the big 4 in the MOBA genre at the current time. See you in just a second for the wrap-up. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a nice long look at the big 4 current leaders of the MOBA or ARTS genre. You're probably asking, well, which one is the best? That comes down to what you like the best. If you like third-person gods, you probably go with Smite. If you like a little bit simpler mechanics, but decently quick gameplay, you want to go for League of Legends. If you like the idea of the map being very different and the game changing based on different objectives, you want to go with Heroes of the Storm. Or if you just want to do a little bit slower paced game, then you want to go with Dota 2. The games change every time you play them. No 2 games are ever going to be the same. But they are always going to be fun. I can pretty much guarantee that, more or less. Now then, if you enjoyed, please feel free to like or favorite this video. You can also leave a comment down below. If you're wondering why I didn't include X or Y game in this list, it's because, like I said, these were the big 4 in the genre at the moment. And there's various reasons why I didn't include things like Paladins or Battleborn or Overwatch. Mostly because those are more first-person shooters than anything else. And if you want to keep up with me and never miss any of my current series, then please feel free to click the subscribe button down below or the link at the end of the video. As for that, folks, I have been D. This has been a decently long look at the 4 leaders of the MOBA genre. So good night and good gaming.